Watch a sleeping dog for long enough and you will see it. The paw that twitches, the legs that move in short, sharp bursts, as though running somewhere specific, the muffled sound that escapes on an exhale. Every owner has stood over that moment and wondered the same thing. We are not going to guess at the answer. There is real research here, some of it from a laboratory in Budapest that most dog owners have never heard of, and it points somewhere genuinely remarkable. But I am also going to tell you exactly where the evidence stops, because the most repeated claim on the internet about what dogs dream is not a study at all, and I think you deserve to know which is which. Start with what is settled. Dogs dream. Not probably, not in the sense that we like to imagine it. They have the machinery, and it has been recorded. Dogs move through the same broad architecture of sleep that you do: wakefulness, drowsiness, non-REM, and REM. Rapid eye movement sleep is the stage most tightly associated with dreaming in humans, and researchers have measured it directly in family dogs using non-invasive polysomnography, electrodes placed gently on a dog who is simply having an afternoon nap. No restraint, no training, no surgery. The stages are readable. The architecture is there. So the question is not whether the lights are on, it is what is playing. For that, we have to go to a rat. In 2001, Kenway Louie and Matthew Wilson at MIT published a study in the journal Neuron that remains one of the most quietly astonishing pieces of neuroscience I know of. They implanted electrode arrays in the hippocampus of rats, the brain region central to memory, and recorded the firing of individual neurons while the animals ran laps on a circular track for food. Running a specific stretch of track produced a specific, traceable sequence of neurons firing in order, a fingerprint of that experience. Then they let the rats sleep, and kept recording. During REM sleep, those sequences came back, not vaguely, not as general activity, the same temporally ordered patterns replaying over tens of seconds to minutes, at roughly the same speed the animal had originally lived them. In some cases, the researchers could look at the pattern and identify which section of the track the sleeping rat was running. Sit with that. A mammal is asleep, motionless, and its brain is running a scene from earlier that day at real time. Now, I want to be careful about what that does and does not establish. 4 rats, a circular track, hippocampal ensembles, not thoughts, and certainly not images. Nobody watched a rat's dream. What it establishes is that the mammalian brain replays lived experience during REM sleep, and that dreaming is not random noise. It is built from what happened, which brings us to the reasoning that gets us to your dog, and to the honest part. Human dream research has a well-supported idea called the continuity hypothesis. It says dream content tends to reflect waking life. You dream about what occupies you, what you attend to, what carries emotional weight. If a mammalian brain replays experience during sleep, and if dream content follows waking concern, then the material a dog's brain has to work with is the material of a dog's day. And the organizing fact of most dogs' days is a person. That chain of reasoning is where the famous claim comes from. You have probably seen it. A Harvard psychologist says your dog dreams about your face and your smell. It gets shared every few months, usually with a photo of a sleeping puppy, and usually described as a study. It is not a study. It comes from a magazine interview in 2016 with Deirdre Barrett, a dream researcher at Harvard Medical School. What she actually said was that humans dream about what interests them by day, that there is no reason to think animals differ, and that since dogs are so attached to their owners, it is likely they dream of their owner's face and smell. Likely. She was reasoning from the continuity hypothesis, out loud, in a Q&A. She is a serious researcher and the reasoning is sound, but no one has looked inside a dreaming dog's brain and found you there, and any video that tells you otherwise is selling you something. Here is why I am not troubled by that. Because while the internet was passing around a magazine quote, a research group in Budapest was doing the actual work, and what they found is, in some ways, better. In 2017, Anna Kiss and colleagues published a study in the Proceedings of the Royal Society B. They took family dogs and, before a 3-hour sleep session, gave each dog one of 2 experiences. One was positive, petting and ball play. The other was negative, separation from the owner, a threatening approach from a stranger, and a still face test, where a person the dog is engaged with suddenly goes blank and unresponsive. Then they recorded the dog's sleep. The sleep structure differed markedly between the 2 conditions. After the negative experience, dogs fell asleep faster, and the distribution of their sleep stages shifted, including their REM sleep. The researchers described this as the first direct evidence that emotional experiences change subsequent sleep physiology in dogs. Read that again, because it is the finding this whole topic rests on. What happened between a dog and a human in the afternoon measurably altered the architecture of that dog's sleep. Not their mood, not their behavior. The physical structure of their sleep, including the stage where dreaming lives. And notice which experiences did it. Not thunder, not hunger, not a change in the weather. Being separated from their person, being approached by a stranger, having a familiar face go suddenly blank. Social experience with humans reaching into sleep. There is more. A 2022 study by Cecilia Carrero and colleagues found that measures of a dog's attachment to their owner were associated with their spontaneous sleep EEG parameters. The strength of the bond and the electrical signature of the sleeping brain are related. Other work from the same tradition has found that where a dog sleeps and how active their day was both shape their sleep stages, and that dogs show sleep-dependent memory consolidation much as we do. Sleep is not downtime. It is when the day gets filed. That last point has a practical edge worth pulling out. If where a dog sleeps changes how they sleep, then the first night in a boarding kennel, or at a relative's house over the holidays, or in a new home after a rescue, is not merely unfamiliar in the way we mean it. The processing itself is running differently. It is one of the better arguments for bringing the same bed and the same blanket when you travel. Not because the dog is sentimental about them, but because the sleeping brain appears to take the surroundings into account before it decides how far down to go. So put it together honestly. We cannot open your dog's dream and read you in it. What we can say is this: the mammalian brain replays lived experience during REM. Your dog has that brain and that REM. Their day is built around you. And when researchers manipulate a dog's social experience with a human, the change shows up in the sleeping brain, in the measurements, every time. You are not proven to be in the dream. You are proven to be in the sleep. And frankly, I find that harder to shrug off than the version on the posters. Now, the twitching. What is that exactly? During REM sleep, a region of the brain stem suppresses motor output. It is a safety mechanism, and it is why you do not physically act out your own dreams. Dogs have it too, but the suppression is not perfect, and fragments of motor signal escape. The paw reaches. The whiskers move. A small sound gets out. What you are watching is a leak, a piece of an internal process making it as far as the body. You will read that puppies and elderly dogs twitch more because that brainstem mechanism is immature in the young and less efficient in the old. That is a reasonable idea, and it is widely repeated, but I would treat it as a plausible explanation rather than a demonstrated one. And there is one very common claim I want to take off the table entirely, because you will encounter it everywhere the moment you start reading about this. Small dogs supposedly have frequent short dreams while large dogs have rare long ones, often with specific numbers attached. There is no study behind that. It traces back to an observation by a single psychologist and has been repeated so often it has taken on the appearance of data. Anyone quoting it as research has not checked. What about bad dreams? If the continuity hypothesis holds, then difficult experiences are available to the dreaming brain along with everything else. A dog whimpering, flinching, or growing visibly agitated in sleep may be processing something hard. And the KISS findings do show that negative social experiences alter sleep structure, so unpleasant days do get into the system. The practical advice, and it is worth following, is not to wake a dog who seems to be having a bad dream. Being pulled abruptly out of REM leaves an animal disoriented, and a startled dog can snap before they know where they are, which is not aggression, it is confusion. Let it pass. Be there when they surface on their own. So what should you actually do with all this? Mostly, I think, change what you are looking at when you look at a sleeping dog, because the reflex is to see rest, an animal doing nothing, waiting for the next walk. What the research describes is closer to the opposite, an organ working through the day, replaying sequences, sorting what matters from what does not, consolidating memory and emotional weight into whatever a dog carries forward. The stillest thing in your house is running one of its most active processes, and the material it has to work with is the day you gave them. The walk that went well, or the one that went badly. The stranger at the door. The hour you were gone, or the hour you were not. That is what the brain reaches for at 11 at night, because there is nothing else in there. Barrett's guess may well be right. I suspect it is, but you do not need it to be true to arrive at the part that matters, because the measurable version already gets you there. A dog's sleep is shaped by their social life with a human. That has been recorded, in electrodes, on ordinary pet dogs having an ordinary nap. You are not just the person who feeds them and opens the door. You are, in a fairly literal sense, part of what their brain is made of. And it keeps working on you long after the room goes dark. Every video on this channel starts with a question most dog owners stop just short of asking. not the comfortable version, the real one, and then goes looking, through the behavioral science, through the research that takes years to surface, through the kind of careful attention that changes how you see an animal you were sure you already understood completely. Because that is what we do here, every single time.